I welcome in Professor of Middle East Studies from Florida Atlantic University, Dr. Robert Rabil. He's joining us today. Also with us, retired U.S. Navy, former Navy Pentagon staffer, senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Brent Sadler. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
The Wall Street Journal reporting this morning that Israel told the U.S. Iran has hatched this new plot to take out President Trump. He's, of course, had a target on his back since he took out General Qasem Soleimani, as Alex just reported, during his first term. Now we're seeing these images, Dr. Rabil, from the former Ayatollah's funeral, the chants of death to America, kill Trump. There was a huge banner saying, "We will kill President Trump." How seriously should we be taking this, Dr. Rabil?
Well, it should be taken very seriously. This is what I would like to try to do. It doesn't mean they are going to be able to do it, but this is something goes back to 2020, and you mentioned it right. You know, with the murder of Soleimani, they have been trying to plot, certain attempts on the life of the president. But I think they will never be able to do it with our intelligence. And also, regarding the chance has been going on since 1979. And let's not forget, because you had a lot of people speaking about, how many supporters Khamenei had. I'm going to tell you one thing, which is extremely important. Iran is a rentier state. That means the largest employer of the state, the largest employer is the state. And thus, it calls on all those to go ahead and participate in the funeral. And this is why you have so many people chanting "Death of United States" and gathering to pay their respect to their leader.
When you look on these images, Brent, is it just a matter of time before we start seeing the kinetic strikes start again?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I think the kinetic strikes are already picking up. The key thing is that they need to be sustained, because clearly that's the only type of language that the regime will respond to positively. So we can do two things at once, bombing as well as negotiating. And I think that's what should be the pattern of behavior going forward.
There was a bit of a pause overnight last night. It was 80 strikes 2 nights ago, 90 two nights ago, 90 strikes, 80 the night before. Last night, U.S. didn't take anything out, but some of the Gulf state region, the allies now, these new friends of ours in the region, Brent, they've engaged. That's helpful, is it not, to build this coalition?
No, it's a strategic shift for them to be engaged and be, participating in the attacks. I wouldn't be surprised if details of that or the public announcements will be very muted still going forward. But clearly, that's a strategic shift. But this is not new. There were earlier reports in this conflict after being attacked many times that several of those countries have actually been more directly involved. And I think it's an indication of how isolated and how much of an enemy Iran and this regime is being viewed.
So as the strikes are ongoing, Dr. Rabil, we're understanding that diplomacy, there's still an attempt at diplomacy. Pakistani and Qatari mediators are really trying to get the two sides back to the table. Does it happen? Do we get back to the table for technical talks?
Well, it might happen. As a matter of fact, it might take more than the technical talks. You have the Qatari, the Saudi, and you have a regional consensus. They don't like to see an open warfare. They are worried about what's could happen, especially the Arab Gulf. So you have an attempt. And that attempt, I think that Iran might consider if United States, for example, and I fully agree with Brad, in that, it can, for example, reinstitute the blockade. It can go, and you have currently now negotiating about the opening of the southern passage of the strait. So you have many options that could lead Iran to go ahead and again engage in negotiation. It's an uphill battle. I think that those chances are less than the chances to continue into a war, but less, than a full war.
Yeah, Brent, do anything come of the talks, and do we trust them if we get to some kind of agreement at the end of the day?
There is no trust. There is no education at stake.
Brent, go ahead.
Sorry if the question is for my panelists.
No problem. Brent, you take that.
Yeah, no worries. Trust is not necessary and not going to be something that we're going to get from this regime, or even in a transition period if there is a shift. But we have to be able to operate in the absence of that, which means we have to maintain a very vigorous military posture, ready to respond and exact more pressure and pain to compel the type of behavior that we expect.
Yeah, President does, continue suggesting that they're begging begging to get to a deal. And he has, meanwhile, had some other, breakthroughs in getting to peace in other hot spots in the Middle East. Listen to the president here.
We just hit them very hard, and I say we hit them 20-1. Every time they hit us, we're going to hit them 20. And they want to make a deal so badly. They called a little while ago. They want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they're worthy of making a deal. I don't know that they're going to honor the deal. That's the problem. They're sort of crazy, to be honest with you. They're sort of crazy. They're a little bit out of control, but they want to make a deal.
That's the president saying Iran wants to get to a deal. But the other areas of the region that he's had some success is Lebanon and Israel here. Dr. Rabil, this is an extraordinary development that after decades of hostilities, that these two sides could work together to oust Hezbollah. That's actually coming to fruition potentially.
Well, I hope so. And as a matter of fact, you have a consensus between the Israeli government and the Lebanese government and United States to go ahead and conclude first a security agreement and then move forward toward a peace treaty. And let's not forget, Ms. Cake, you had some negotiation between Israel and Lebanon for quite some time in the 1970s and 1980s. Unfortunately, they collapsed. So today, Lebanon, and for the first time, it doesn't have it's not sponsored, by or occupied by Syria or the Iranian regime. So really, what's happening is that you have a serious attempt to go ahead and end this hostility between Israel and Lebanon. And I lived in Lebanon, I served in the Red Cross in Lebanon, and I welcome this. But having said that, you have a lot of challenges because you have Hezbollah. You have some communities or some leaders in the community, whether in the Druze or whether in the Shia, they are against that. So we are going to see what's going to happen. But much is going to rely, on the determination of the Lebanese army. And of course, under the supervision of the Lebanese president to go ahead with the negotiation. And I am hoping and I'm praying that the president of Lebanon will meet with President Trump and strike a deal with President Trump, because now President Trump is really serious about having, or paving the way for a peace between Israel and Lebanon.
Yeah, Brent, that's the key here is that, Lebanon has to want Hezbollah out of its government and its military.
No, I think that's very true, and it's been true for quite a long time. But when you have the Iranian IRGC funneling money and weapons into the Hezbollah, it's kind of the strongest muscle on the street, and it's been to the detriment of the Lebanese people, and certainly unity in the government there going all the way back since 1989 Taif's agreement to end the civil war in Lebanon. So I think, thankfully, with the great reduction in the IRGC's presence and influence in Lebanon, you're seeing this diplomatic opportunity, and it appears the president, the national government in Beirut is taking advantage of it. And we are aligned with the Israelis all at the same moment. The key thing is not to allow Iran any opening to reinsert itself and to resume the military funneling of weapons as well as money back into Hezbollah.
It seems it's reasserting itself in the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, that's at the center of all of this. Traffic is pretty much at a standstill once again. The president is reportedly suggesting, that these attacks on the tankers, unacceptable, of course. It's been his red line, or one of them. On X, the Central Command has put up some, comments as well, specifically rejecting Iran's claim over the strait. And the president has floated taking over Karg Island. He mentioned it again this week. Brent, let's stay with you on this. And then Dr. Rabil, Karg Island, critical, pivotal. Is it time to do it and stop talking about it?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's very critical.
Dr. Brent, to you first on this, and then to Dr. Rabil.
No worries. No, Karg Island, from the very beginning, putting troops and boots on the ground there is not really necessary, because the goal is to control Iran's and put a stranglehold on its economy. 90% of its export value goes through the energy that they ship out of Karg Island. Having control of the waterways is what's really the issue, and that takes you all the way back to the blockade, which, to be effective, you just have to keep the ships from getting in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. And the U.S. Navy owns the deep ocean out there in the Arabian Sea. So a distant blockade is more than effective to have the same goal. But of course, you're going to have to watch and apply more pressure on the Iranians' ability to stop the shipping that we want through there. And that needs to continue no matter if negotiations resume or not.
Dr. Rabil, very quickly, taking Karg Island, though, would certainly change the calculus in the region, would it not?
Absolutely, and you don't need to take it. You need to destroy it if it comes, if push comes to shove. You can destroy it, and the United States had the ability. And I absolutely agree with Brent in that, it's a hub that export 90% of Iranian oil. So I think this is a last resort. You have other things that United States can do.
Dr. Robert Rabil, Brent Sadler, great conversation as always. Good to see you both.
Thank you.